Daniel woke up with a start. It was Saturday, but something felt different. He could hear his mum humming downstairs. He hopped out of bed and went to greet her.
Morning, sleepyhead. I need your help with something.
Mum chirped, her hands buried in a mountain of fabric. Daniel's eyes widened as he saw what she was holding. It was a dress, a bright, shimmery dress.
What's that for?
It's for your sister, silly. Remember, she has that school play next week?
Mum replied, her eyes twinkling. Daniel's heart sank. His sister's dress. But his sister was miles away at summer camp. Monday morning arrived like a storm cloud. Daniel dragged his feet to school, his stomach churning with anxiety. He had successfully avoided the dress all weekend, but now he had to face his friends. As he entered the classroom, whispers and giggles erupted around him. Daniel felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment. He could feel everyone's eyes on him, judging.
Hey Daniel, what's with the long face?
His best friend Ben asked, a mischievous grin on his face. Daniel just shrugged, his eyes darting nervously toward the corner where his crush Emily sat. He imagined her reaction to the dress incident and cringed inwardly. During recess, Daniel found himself cornered by his friends. They had that look in their eyes, the one that meant they were up to something. They were huddled together, their faces a mix of excitement and mischief. It was clear they had a plan, and Daniel was at the center of it.
We have an idea. We need your help for the school cultural competition. It's going to be epic.
Ben announced, his eyes gleaming with excitement. He was always the ringleader when it came to these things. Daniel raised an eyebrow. He wasn't exactly known for his cultural prowess. In fact, he usually avoided these events altogether. He was more of a comic book and video game kind of guy. The idea of participating in a school play was completely foreign to him.
What kind of help? Daniel asked, already feeling a bit apprehensive.
We're doing a play, and we need someone to play the female lead. It's a crucial role, and we think you'd be perfect for it. Someone who's not afraid to be, well, a bit different. You know, someone who can really bring the character to life.
Daniel's heart skipped a beat. This was not what he had expected at all. His eyes darted to the small silver nose ring he'd gotten over the summer, a secret act of rebellion he'd been hiding from his parents. It was a symbol of his desire to be different, to stand out in his own way. He knew exactly what they meant. This was his chance to embrace that side of himself, to step out of his comfort zone and do something truly unique. The next few days were a blur of persuasion and pleas. Daniel's friends wouldn't let up, their arguments growing more persuasive by the day. Even his teachers joined in, assuring him that it would be a valuable learning experience. Daniel found himself wavering. He'd always been a bit of a performer, the class clown, the king of silly voices, but this was different. This was stepping into someone else's shoes, someone he wasn't sure he understood. He looked in the mirror, his reflection staring back at him, a jumble of nerves and defiance. Could he really do this? It felt strange, unfamiliar, like a second skin. He stared at his reflection, hardly recognizing the person staring back at him. The day of the first rehearsal arrived. Daniel stood backstage, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He could hear the murmur of the audience taking their seats, anticipation hanging thick in the air. He took a deep breath and slipped into the dress.
You look wonderful, sweetheart.
His mom, ever his pillar of support, adjusted his collar and smiled.
Or should I say herself? Just be yourself.
Her words were like a calming balm on his frayed nerves. He took another deep breath, a newfound sense of determination settling in his stomach. He could do this. His mom, a master of transformations, had worked her magic. Her deft fingers had braided his hair into intricate plaits adorned with colorful ribbons. His face, usually bare, was delicately dusted with makeup, highlighting his eyes. Initially hesitant, Daniel found himself strangely captivated by the process. He had never paid much attention to these things, the rituals of femininity, but as his mum worked, he felt a strange sense of wonderment. It was like watching an artist paint, each stroke adding a new layer of beauty.
There, what do you think?
Daniel looked in the mirror, his reflection a stranger and yet oddly familiar. He couldn't explain it, but he felt pretty. Section 7. Rehearsals and revelations. The first few rehearsals were awkward, to say the least. Daniel stumbled over his lines, his movements stiff and unnatural. He felt like a fraud, a boy pretending to be something he wasn't. But slowly something began to change. As he immersed himself in the character, he started to understand her hopes, her dreams, her fears. He found himself connecting with her on a deeper level, a level that transcended the superficiality of gender. He discovered a newfound grace in his movements, a confidence in his voice he never knew he possessed. He even found himself enjoying the camaraderie of his female co-stars, their laughter and shared secrets forging an unexpected bond. Section 8, Showtime. The night of the performance arrived, a culmination of weeks of preparation and self-discovery. The air was thick with anticipation, and every corner of the theater buzzed with the energy of the upcoming show. The performers had poured their hearts and souls into rehearsals, and now the moment of truth was upon them. Daniel stood backstage, the familiar flutter of stage fright dancing in his stomach. He had been here before, but tonight felt different. The stakes were higher, the audience larger, and the expectations greater. He could feel the weight of it all pressing down on him, yet there was a spark of something new within him. But this time it was different. This time he felt a sense of purpose, a determination that had been absent in previous performances. He had grown not just as an actor, but as a person. The journey to this night had been one of self-discovery, and he was ready to show the world what he had found. This time it was tinged with a thrill of excitement. The nervousness was still there, but it was accompanied by a newfound confidence. He had learned to channel his anxiety into energy, to use it to fuel his performance rather than hinder it. He could hear the hushed whispers of the audience, the rustle of programs, the expectant silence that descended as the lights dimmed. The theater was a living, breathing entity, and he could feel its pulse. The audience was ready, and so was he. He took a deep breath, remembering his mother's words, "Just be yourself." Those words had been his anchor, his guiding light through the storm of self-doubt and fear. They reminded him that he didn't have to be perfect. He just had to be true to himself.
Just be yourself.
And with that, he stepped onto the stage, bathed in the warm glow of the spotlight. The world outside faded away, and for those few precious moments, he was no longer Daniel, the boy who loved comic books and video games. He was someone else entirely, someone who had the power to captivate and inspire. The world outside faded away, and for those few precious moments, he was no longer Daniel, the boy who loved comic books and video games. He was the character he was portraying, a character who taught him that true strength lay not in conforming to societal norms, but in embracing one's true self. The audience watched in rapt attention, completely absorbed in the story he was telling. He was the character he was portraying, a character who taught him that true strength lay not in conforming to societal norms, but in embracing one's true self. The applause that followed was not just for the performance, but for the journey he had undertaken to get there. It was a night he would never forget, a night that marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Section 9, Curtain Call and Confessions. The performance was a resounding success. The audience erupted in thunderous applause as the curtain fell, their cheers echoing through the auditorium. Daniel took his bow, his heart swelling with a mix of pride and relief. Backstage, congratulations poured in. His friends, his teachers, even Emily, her eyes sparkling with admiration, but it was his mother's embrace that meant the most. Her whispered words, "I'm so proud of you," bringing tears to his eyes. Later that night, as he was getting ready for bed, Daniel finally confessed to his mom about the nose ring. To his surprise, she didn't scold him. She simply smiled and said, "I'm so proud of you."
It looks very nice on you, sweetheart.
Section 10. A boy, a dress, and a brand new perspective. Daniel lay in bed, the events of the past few weeks replaying in his mind like a movie. Each scene was vivid, each moment etched into his memory. He had faced his fears, challenged his own perceptions, and emerged from the experience a changed person. The journey had not been easy, but it had been worth every step. He had learned that it was okay to be different, that true strength lay in embracing one's individuality. The dress, once a source of anxiety, had become a symbol of his courage. He had discovered a newfound respect for girls, for the pressures they faced, the expectations they had to live up to. He saw them not just as classmates, but as individuals with their own struggles and triumphs. He had learned that true beauty wasn't about outward appearances, but about the kindness, courage, and compassion that resided within. These qualities, he realized, were what truly defined a person. As he drifted off to sleep, he realized that the dress, a symbol of his initial fear and resistance, had become a symbol of his transformation. It represented his journey from fear to acceptance, from confusion to clarity. It had taught him that life was a stage, and each day offered a new opportunity to step outside his comfort zone and discover who he truly was. Every day was a chance to learn, to grow, and to become a better version of himself, and for that he was grateful. Grateful for the experiences, the lessons, and the growth. He knew that this was just the beginning of his journey, and he was ready to face whatever came next with an open heart and an open mind.